the list of exciting heroes is a fairly short one. It features names like the CBZ, the Charisma and the Impulse. Well, not too many of you will agree with the Impulse being on that list, but the truth is, it was a brave attempt by the then newly formed Hero MotoCorp because it introduced people to the world of dirt riding. However, because it wasn't very powerful, its appeal was quite limited. And now, 8 long years after the Impulse came into being, Hero wants you to dream of a bigger motorcycle. This one, the XPulse 200. And Hero has been trying so hard to get it right that they were trying to perfect the XPulse until as recently as, well, last Tuesday. Well, not exactly, but I suppose that's the only reason why Hero would take so long to let us have one. For now, just feast your eyes before we get on with it.
Straight away, the XPulse reminds you of the Impulse's silhouette, but there's absolutely nothing in common in terms of the bodywork. Through minor visual details such as the sculpted fuel tank, the small fly screen and the elaborate sump guard, it looks a bit more grown up and purposeful. Despite a fair few modern touches, be it the LED headlight, which isn't a very impressive unit as we discovered, or even the swanky grab rail, it still looks a bit old school. In the name of keeping the XPulse up to date, Hero has also equipped it with this fully digital dash which, in addition to the basic functions, tells you about stuff like the average speed and gear position, and it also tells you, in case you need it, the date. I wish it could have just told Hero to hurry up instead. What some of you will appreciate though is the Bluetooth connectivity it offers through the Hero RideGuide app, and it features a turn-by-turn navigation function supported by Google Maps. We sampled a pre-production version of this feature and it wasn't glitch-free, but Hero assures us a refined version of the same will be available on the bikes that go on sale.
And now that it is finally here, isn't it very annoying to you that I'm just standing here, talking away, taking my own sweet time? Alright, what's the first question you need answers to? The off-road capability? Nah.
Like any of you would, the first thing I tried to find out was if it could, indeed, cruise at 100 kph in 5th gear. The answer is no. It does this at the 7000 rpm mark in 5th gear, which is on the higher side considering this bike redlines at 9000 rpm. With the 200cc 2-valve fuel-injected single-cylinder motor producing 18.4 PS and 17.1 Nm of torque, the XPulse guarantees you of only very mild thrills in any case, but when you consider that this bike is 20 kilos heavier than the Impulse, the performance increment comes across as minimal at best. Beyond 90 kph, the XPulse needs commitment and a lot of room to keep going, and while the speedo can indicate upwards of 120 kph given a very long straight, getting there requires a lot of effort and an equal amount of patience as well.
So while the XPulse is a step up over the Impulse, it's not going to serve you significantly better on, say, a ride to Leh. To do that, it needs to have more punch, more refinement and definitely a better cruising speed. But of course, that's not all there is to the XPulse. It does make a good first impression in the dash from 0 to 60, and the engine, sourced from the Extreme 200R, is refined, although it isn't butter smooth.
The noticeable buzz beyond 6000 rpm assures you that the XPulse won't be the champion of a Chai Cup challenge, but it's only nearest to the red line that the vibrations at the handlebar and the pegs begin to get numbing. It must also be said that the XPulse isn't the raciest sounding 200 out there, but that's a subjective choice, especially if you like muted exhaust notes over long riding days. Speaking of which, the 13-litre fuel tank should equip the XPulse with a decent range, limiting your fuel stops to roughly once every 400 kilometers. Having said that, what will make you want to stop frequently is the seat, which is wide and spacious enough for both rider and pillion, but is a bit excessively firm for long rides.
The big question for us enthusiasts, however, is whether Hero has managed to retain the essence of the Impulse. To find out, we're here at the Big Rock Dirt Park, an off-road playground started by a certain CS Santosh. It's the perfect place to find out whether the XPulse retains the Impulse's magical telepathic feel and whether it is as tough as it needs to be. This thing is like such a toy off the road, and it feels slightly better built than the Impulse as well. The single down tube chassis makes it comfortably agile, and the overall slim stance makes it seem unintimidating when you're pushing your luck with the dirt gods. You're also seated lower than on the Impulse and than on the BMW 310 GS, which means if you're about 5'10", you can place both your feet absolutely flat on the ground. A small compromise is the reduced ground clearance, now 220 mm, but it's decent enough for moderate off-roading. At 154 kg, it is a lot heavier than the Impulse, but it doesn't feel unmanageable in any sort of situation.
And then there's the suspension. There's nothing sophisticated about the 37mm telescopic fork or even about the 10-step preload adjustable gas-charged monoshock, but the XPulse can take a beating and it definitely feels more confident than the Impulse. Ride quality over broken roads at lower speeds is on the firm side, but the positive side to the absence of a liberally soft setup is that the handling, despite the 21 18-inch wheel combination, is quite effortless and actually quite enjoyable. On another note, the Ceat tyres with the off-road bias tread offer decent off-road traction while being grippy enough on the dry roads we rode it on.
Over bad roads, there's nothing about the XPulse's ride quality that will make you clench your teeth, and the term speed breaker just doesn't feature in its bakwas dictionary.
But a motorcycle that can go anywhere is pointless if it can't stop anywhere, and very quickly. And for this purpose, Hero has equipped it with a disc brake at either end and a single-channel ABS as well. Both of these work very effectively, and the bite is just right for the road while being progressive enough for your off-road adventures. Having said that, some of you may not like that ABS cannot be turned off, but then exactly how many people are really fond of locking the front wheel? The ABS-free rear wheel is what will let you have a lot of fun, in other words.
And now for the biggest question. Has all the work that Hero has put in and all the time it's taken to build the XPulse resulted in the perfect Impulse this bike was supposed to be? The answer is not quite. Sure, the XPulse is an incremental evolution over the Impulse, and it is better than that bike in every single way. But the truth is, given the time Hero had to catch up, it could have been so much more substantial, so much more rewarding, and just so much better on the whole.
But Hero has served an ace with the pricing. At 97,000 rupees for the carburetted version and 1.05 lakh rupees ex-showroom Delhi for the fuel-injected version, the XPulse becomes impossible to ignore. Its poor highway cruising ability keeps it from being the all-rounder we expected or hoped for, but with its solid off-road ability backed by a simple and hardy nature, the XPulse definitely spells a lot of value for money for the budding off-road enthusiast. When you consider that the next such motorcycle will cost you twice as much, the XPulse does make a lot of sense. And that means there's finally a Hero you can start dreaming about again. Wait, that didn't sound right.